Hey Vaibhav,
Hello, Swapnil. Hi, how are you?
pretty good. Are we
Get
good on
this.
connectivity now?
I think so, but I just want to make sure this phone doesn't fall down or something. Okay, let's see. I'll keep balancing it, man. How's it going?
Pretty good. When we are 20 kilometers apart, but connectivity still sucks.
Corona times, 20 kilometers is nothing, man. Everybody is like a bloody planet away.
The maximum time I took to kind of get ready for your interaction was to get my hair in place. It's just wildly growing, so it's so good to see you. Something that there's one quality which I've been envious of you all this while is to cumulatively how do you put less man hours in grooming yourself.
That's a lost cause for me now, so I don't even talk about it anymore. I let that fly past me, don't worry.
Good man. Thank you very
Good to
much
see you.
for your
Good to
time.
see you. Good. Always good to see you. How's it going? You've
Life's
been very
good.
busy?
Life's been teaching a lot of things. It's been good, but yeah. So just to refresh you on the quarantine toasters. So it's a series wherein I'm talking to all my personal influencers who are part of my LinkedIn connections, and we are just trying to spread the word around. On if I can get inspired by you, how can we inspire others? So I'm sure you're good at it. Always underestimating yourself. When you take the center stage. But that's Vaibhav Mehta for you.
Anyway, as I said, some of the things I let them pass because you're on a roll. It looks like. Go ahead, man.
I'm
How's it
not on a
going?
roll, but I'm just trying to do something positive. But Vaibhav, I've what known you for a decade now, almost a decade,
Sure, sure.
almost at least more than 100, at least more than 100 months if I recollect well. And if I were to put you in one simple word,
Hmm.
I think that one word would be evolved. That's how I've seen you, and that's what I've learned from you. And the other word which I can closely correlate to is focus, razor sharp focus.
Okay.
So what has changed? What has changed in these last 100 days versus what you have been in the past 100 months.
Well, not much has changed. I mean, human beings usually don't change too much. Lost connectivity. Oh yeah, you're back again. Yeah.
It will
So
happen. So it's okay. Just
yeah,
go on.
we'll go with it.
Yeah.
No, so not much has changed. I think it's a shift from what I used to do.
Mm-hmm.
20 years almost with a certain set of people, folks, team, and a certain a segment that I was working in. The last few months or have been a bit different from that perspective. It's a fresh new start. Corona just happened in between. That's all, but it's just a fresh new start. So from that point, I think I would still, if I can maintain some of these nice qualities you spoke about me, which is kind of being super focused. I think now is the
Yeah.
time more than any other time for me to be focused on what I'm doing. So I think that's what's going on my front right now.
Sure, man. And one thing which I've always found in our interactions and in a lot of interactions that I've heard giving to a lot of your team members or a lot of your subordinates is just be happy in whatever you do. Now that's a consistent message I have personally heard from you since 8 years, and you normally don't associate a leader using this quite often. That be happy at the end of every conversation. How has that come along your way? Or what does happiness mean for you?
Yeah. Whoa. The first thing comes to my mind is that movie, man. The Will Smith movie, Pursuit of Happiness. I think uh, I mean, it's just a reaction. Yeah, you just asked me. I know you're asking about leadership styles and happiness attached to it, but the first thing when you say that word happiness hits me is this. I'm not sure if you have seen it, but if you have not, you should see that movie. It's absolutely
Sure.
brilliant. For me, on a personal level or for people, happiness has so many forms. Yeah, if you look at like a super short term happiness, just being out these days is being happy, right? Getting
Yeah.
out of your house and being outside is happy. Well, if you're on a diet, which I've been trying to do a zillion times in my life, having that pizza slice during a diet is super happiness. Yeah. So these are small things, yeah, which make you happy. Long run, yeah. If you have great equations with your family, kids, parents, with your work peers, that's happiness. But I think from when you mentioned the thing about the teams that I used to work with, or team members I work with, and I've asked them about happiness. In the end, when you do your work, and when you kind of uh, live the purpose of the company, you look at the goals, what the company wanted, you set your personal goals together with the company. I think in the end, if you are left with a feeling that you minimize the number of could haves and should haves in your life
Mm-hmm.
and in your professional life, I think you will end up being very happy. Because in the end, everybody you talk to at sometimes says, I wish I could have done that. I wish I should have done that. Right?
Yeah.
I could have. So these could haves and should haves and could haves and should haves, they just keep escalating as you move ahead in your
Hmm.
life, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Especially professional life as well.
Hmm.
ये मुझे ये करना चाहिए था, वो करना चाहिए था. And I've been guilty of a lot of that cribbing and crying at sometimes myself.
Sure.
So in the end, I think I tell my colleagues and friends and peers that if you can minimize your could haves and should haves in life, probably you'll end up being super happy. I think
Wow.
that's how I define happiness, at least from my point. Does it work in work as a leader? I believe it does. I believe it does. But then you also have to back it up with a lot of belief and a sense of purpose in what people want to achieve and do. So, in the end, happiness is, I believe, minimizing all those could haves and should haves. If you can do that, and if you can do that right for yourself and for your people you work with,
Sure.
oh, you'll be very happy wherever you are.
Wow. Wow. One of the best ones I've heard again from you. But yeah, thank you for that eye opener for a lot of for a lot of ones who are going to listen to
I
this.
mean, talking to you, I mean, I know this is just, but I reflect on you is in the last few years you have done that. I mean, I've seen certain conversations we have had, not lately, obviously, last few months has been different, but you've done that, right? You have kind of taken the bull by the horns and, or whatever it's called, horn by the bull, whatever. But you have done that. You have kind of, I think you should keep doing that, man. I think you've done a pretty decent job in minimizing those should haves and could haves. I believe
Yeah.
that's one thing that I would recommend you keep doing more and more.
Sure, thank you. No, but one of the reasons I've been able to do that is because you have been one of the closest mentor I've been associated with, for the maximum number
Thanks
of
for
months
that.
in the past decade, right? And I've learned so much from you genuinely. You have been standing by my side, in the terms of appreciation. But the thing I've realized off late is you have also been my biggest critic, which is so good to have. Something who has constructive criticism for you doesn't happen day in and day out. Uh, you know, I'm sure you have had this. A lot of people criticizing you and the team in the past couple of decades. So just interested to know how have you taken that in your stride, the word constructive criticism, or even criticism for that matter.
So this is Swapnil at his super best. Huh? He first says nice things about you, and then he slips in that, oh, you have been very critical about me. So no, that's all lighter note. But I'm just kidding.
It's a seesaw. Yeah.
Uh, it's a seesaw. It's a seesaw. You asked your question is
I mean,
on
it's primarily on how have you taken criticism in your stride in the past couple of decades, right? I'm sure all those years are not a honeymoon period for you, right? There would have been tons of challenges, there would have been tons of advices, but I'm sure you would have been criticized as well, right? How have you taken that in your stride, positively and negatively?
uh, see when you kind of I had an interesting work journey, to be honest. When I started off, I was part of a very exciting team, and the founder was an amazing person, and there was constant, and we were young that time, and we were
Sure.
we were growing pretty fast, and then worked with a private equity, and then with a large company. How Sterlite it was an amazing. So if I put three stages of a career, which is the initial years of learning and quick growth in startup, the middle phase of trying to become a manager. I'm using the word trying because it's tough to be a manager and then a leader. So I've tried that. I've kind of seen how that becomes, and then eventually I saw a massive uh, a massive framework in Starlight on how to look at scale. And I think those three phases, I'm extremely thankful to all the feedback I've received. Criticism aplenty, obviously, but I would call it feedback.
Yeah,
I think a critic or a feedback is extremely important. The way
sure.
I see criticism, or way I would like to understand and give a note. Even in our discussions, I think criticism is not about anything else. It's just the ability of a leader to raise the benchmark for the teams. Because as
Well
you
said.
grow, and as you change and as you evolve, right? And you mentioned about my experience, but it's been an evolution with a lot of great people I work with. It was a team all along which kind of evolved, and I think criticism, or constructive criticism, as you put it, I would call it, is the ability of the giver and the receiver to accept new benchmarks.
Sure.
If you can see that as raising the bar, or if you can see that, hey, listen, man, this is where I am and this is where we want to be, there's always a knowing doing gap. I know everything, but I'll not do anything about it. That's a very common norm in our corporate world. Yeah, it's called the
Yeah.
knowing doing gap. सब
Yeah.
कुछ पता है लेकिन कुछ भी नहीं करना है, right? कि वो कोई और करेगा. It's time you pick up the ball and run. So I think that's where I have been blessed by some great leaders in all the
Sure.
three stages. In the startup stage was the founder. In the mid stages was my boss. I had a couple of them, very strong ones.
Sure.
I'm still in awe of some of them, actually all of them. And then in the late stage, which was the Starlight, was a different framework altogether. And
Sure.
all the three times, I think what I've learned is the leaders, when they are giving you a feedback or a view, I think if you look at it a way as raise the bar a bit or set a new benchmark for yourself and your teams, I think that way the criticism becomes easy to take
Yeah.
and then easy to act upon. If Of course, I've been guilty of being taking it very personally at times, and I've done some stupid mistakes around that, but that's fair. I mean, that happens. That's a learning curve which
Yeah.
everybody has with wisdom and experience that comes through. But I believe, yeah, that's how I see that. So I think criticism is a strong word, honestly, but I think it's more about feedback. And I think the wisdom between the receiver and the giver should be that in work, I'm talking about. Personal life is
Yeah.
different. In work, it's about making sure that you're raising the benchmark and you're raising the bar for the teams around you. Right? If you take that feedback accordingly, then criticism becomes a strong weapon for your own personal growth.
Wow. Wow. Always a pleasure to have these learnings from you, Vaibhav.
Yeah.
So,
So
if I have
I
to,
am a good teacher. I don't practice all this, just so you know.
you practice
Sorry,
it on,
man.
yeah, yeah. So you practice it on yourself, right? That's what I know.
Uh,
So, Vaibhav, if I have to connect these, behavioral patterns of yours and the leadership skills to what you have actually done in the 20 years, you know, is be a strong, I don't know if that's the right word, but be a strong telco professional. Now you have seen this ecosystem extremely closely of how the telcos have have kind of evolved and disrupted in the past couple of decades. How do you see this, curve in your opinion from an edge to edge? The former edge being the 2G edge and the latter
wow.
being the 5G one.
Oh, you've been talking a lot of CTOs, man. You have. Uh, no, that's a strong question. And first of all, uh, you acknowledging me as a telco leader, it sounds good. Thanks for that. Uh, the question is, how do I see? So if you look at an evolution between in our world, right, which is, let's say, from 2G we have moved to 3G, 4G, and now eventually 5G, and then there are talks on 6G. I think from a technology point, if you remove all the attributes, standards, call flows, and architectures, I think it boils down to three main things where the industry evolves. When you move from, let's say, 2G to a 3G, 4G, 5G, I think three things are mainly happening. Yeah, the first one is better speeds, which is, can you pump in more bits per second in that pipe? Second one, which people are trying to achieve when they're moving from a generation of telephony to another, is latency? Can you make the experience better for the end user? So which means that when you're browsing pages, do they load very quickly? Things like that, small things. And third thing is, can you pack more devices in that coverage area?
Yeah.
Right. So the innovation, the R&D, and the for me, the way 2G to 5G evolved has principally been around these three areas.
Hmm.
We call it speed, latency, experience, and third is how many more devices can we pack in a certain coverage area,
It's
right?
density. Yeah.
It's the density. That's the right word. Now, between these three is how a 2G or 2G to 4G and 5G is evolved. What happened in between was till 4G, this was fine. You had a dual dimension. You had a device and a data center, or a device and a central node. Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's how the evolution of the architecture happened.
Sure.
Now there is a third element which has come in. Right, the cloud has come in. So the difference between 2G and now the 5G is, instead of a two-dimensional system, which was device and a cell tower or device and a switch, now you have a three-dimensional system, which is creating a completely different. It's not a different shift, but it's a different architecture, which
Sure.
revolves around device, network, and cloud.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if if you look at the evolution pattern, um, the network is nothing but now made up of functions,
Yeah.
correct? So that's a new one. Now, no, if you look at the old 2G, 3G talks, it was all about all about kind of chipsets and all that stuff. But now I think the discussion is moving about the network is a set of functions.
Yeah.
Um, the device is a set of SDKs and APIs,
Mm-hmm.
and the cloud is a set of intelligent algorithms, right?
Yeah.
So
Well
I
said.
think that's the fundamental shift where our industry is changing, and we all have ride that wave. So the world is now revolving between a device, cloud, and a network, and that's the
Yeah.
triangle which has formed, which is three-dimensional, and the industry is not two-dimensional anymore.
Sure, sure. But just to double click on a couple of words you said there. So is it? I mean, in Europe, and I'm a 5G champ, myself, in terms of, the thought leadership for now. But is 5G is an optimistic myth for now, or you believe it is now a ready business reality? I mean, which one would you choose?
See, the uh, first of all, is 5G an optimistic myth? Uh, I'm honestly not an expert. I don't have that much exposure on what's happening on the global scale
Sure.
last few months. I won't be able to comment too much on that. It will be injustice to the kind of investments happening in 5G. So
Yeah.
I won't necessarily comment on the optimism around 5G. But what I would love to comment is, um, what I was trying to get at is, when you have this three-dimensional approach coming in, 5G allows kind of a different perspective on rolling out platforms, right?
Yeah.
Um, and if you look at platform, the telco is nothing but a spectrum owner, and that's about it.
Yeah.
But if the telco can evolve to make sure that from a spectrum ownership, it can go to partnerships and collaboration using trends. What are the trends in front of us? One, um, 5G enables extreme low latency,
Mm-hmm.
and because of that, it allows you to offer um, uh, a network which is much more distributed in nature. And as you disaggregate or kind of disintegrate your network,
Yeah.
there's a concept of multi-tenancy and edge clouds coming up, and I think that's one area where the 5G will play a big role.
Sure.
It becomes more important because the technology now, 5G offers a massive spectrum to play with. It allows,
Yeah.
between the low, mid, and high, it offers you three different band types with three different characteristics, which evolve to network slice, and that evolve to different industry verticals, and
Yeah.
all that stuff. Now, with that coming up, if connectivity is established, and then you start looking at enabling that connectivity both in private networks or in public networks,
Mm-hmm.
or in industrial internet IoT sensor kind of devices. I think that's where the optimism will arrive for 5G. The 5G is nothing but it's a better radio quality with more spectrum efficiency to
Yeah.
make sure that the latency and speed is met, right? That's
Sure.
point number one. But it's just that the architecture of 5G, which is service and software based, allows a bigger play for the telco. And I think we don't have to go very far from where we both live. In Mumbai, we have seen Geo evolve from
Yeah.
a free sort of telco to this Geo platform, which is what, 10 investors and close to 22% liquidity with 100,000 or crore. I don't know how many numbers they've added in last. Yesterday there was one
Yeah.
in the evening as well.
Yeah.
So I think if there is optimism now, that coming back to your question,
Yeah.
and that's it, and that's a classic example of why telecom companies should be optimistic, with a kind of a sense of a new radio coming to them. And it's not just Geo, right? It's even AT&T who's acquired
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
much content. It's even Deutsche Telekom who is doing so many things.
Absolutely.
Um, so yes, for that optimism is warranted. But I don't think it's the radio 5G which is gonna only create that optimism, right? It's the
Sure.
shift of the business model
Absolutely.
by the telco to adopt these three trends,
Yeah.
which makes it essential.
Yeah.
I
Couldn't
think
agree
that's
more. Yeah. I mean, everything eventually boils down to the use cases. So absolutely agreed. Yeah.
uh,
That's how it goes. So, Vaibhav, before sorry, before we go to the fun quiz, you get a chance to ask me anything,
one thing.
if at all you have anything to ask, or if you want to pardon me, we can move to the fun quiz part as well.
No, I'm on a personal. I'm very happy for you that the progress that you made professionally, and I think you just have to keep it up. So many incidents I'll tell you in the past that I've spoken to customers, and they'll be, oh, we met Swapnil, and I'm like, very interesting.
Oh,
So that's great. I think I'm very happy when I see that. I'm extremely happy that what you're doing. I think hard work for us was never an issue. I mean,
absolutely.
the
Yeah.
way we have worked, I think putting that 14, 15, I don't know, 16 hours a time has never been an issue. But I think lately the kind of ecosystem you're working in, the kind of people you're working with, the kind of investments you are driving with the team of people, I think it's given you a great platform to
Sure.
realize your potential.
Sure.
So
No, absolutely.
all
Yeah.
the best, man, and you make the most of it
Yeah.
and ride the
Thank you.
wave. I think you're in the
Yeah.
right place at the right time.
Sure. The organization has been kind enough to back me up as well,
Sure,
and
sure.
of course, as you rightly said, whatever we have learned as a culture in terms of putting extra hours and creating that sweat out of it in a sweet way, that is, that's always the
Yeah.
mantra going forward.
And you have a platform. You have an excellent platform in front of you, which has been created by so many people
Sure.
in this journey with you. So I think it's great. You should
Thank you.
just lead
It
on.
always helps. Yeah. It always helps. So I have a few quick fun quiz before we end our great learning conversation.
Oh,
Right. So the first one, uh, this is related to your personal life.
okay.
So just a bit, change and shift. One quality from your wife which you would want to steal for your own good, and if you can, speak on a public platform.
Ah, man.
Oh, there are so many.
Is there a next question coming up, or can I just pass this one? uh, I mean, uh,
I know, she would be in an approximately 50 meters maximum away from you.
we're in lockdown mode, man. How far can I go? Warmth. I think her ability to connect with people is amazing.
Good.
Uh, I don't connect very well, man, with people. I'm very transactional sometimes in my conduct, but I think that's one quality I want to pick up. I think that's big. There are plenty more. She works harder than me at times, so I know that the industry she is
No,
in,
no,
it's
no. We don't
crazy.
need to appreciate her. That's okay. You can, you can, you can keep that off the camera.
ठीक है. No, I think I want to pass this one to her. So,
Okay.
okay, next one, man. Let's go.
Cool. If you had to create a resume, what would be your three selling points?
Oh, I did, man. After
Oh,
I
you
left
did?
Sterlite, I
Amazing.
did. I applied also. I got rejected 2 3 places.
A
Uh,
lot of them would be listening to you anyways. But yeah, go ahead.
they'll say, rightly so, this guy. Um, if I had,
Your three selling
uh,
points. Yeah.
I think ability to visualize what's coming up next,
Sure.
put that into sort of a clarity on how to take it to customers and market, and then rally teams around that. I
Wow.
think that's for
Straight
me
and
has been
simple.
my yeah that's been my uh, my, my learning more than anything.
Sure.
I haven't championed it, but it's been a super learning. So if you can put this people, customer, and product or market, if you put that triangle together,
That
I
framework.
think
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah. You
think
have championed that framework. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's a work in progress, but I
Sure.
think that's one thing I can bring to companies which I would think they will benefit, and in turn, so would I with them.
Amazing. So, Vaibhav, you're a, you live in a place called Juhu in Mumbai.
Yeah.
Just a trick question around it. Now, we know
Now,
that there is no.
I'm a Gujarati. I'm supposed to live in Joe, man. That's
Oh
how it
yeah.
was.
Okay. So some of the people, do tell me this that
Yeah.
Vaibhav is a Juhu boy. Now I don't know what that into inverted commas Juhu boy means, but I'll keep it a bit simpler for you. So, Juhu does not have a train station, right? Which are the three nearest train stations to Juhu? I don't know when did you travel last in a Mumbai local train, but which would be the three
Um,
nearest stations?
Villeparle is our station, man. So
That's one.
that's
The other
one.
two,
Santa Cruz comes the other side of it, and this side of it, Andheri. So Andheri,
pretty
Villeparle, and
good.
Santa Cruz. Not bad. No,
Not bad. Yeah.
it's not that. When my in my first job, I had yeah, Joe is nice, but all that. But my first job, I had all the three passes: Western, Harbour, and Central.
Wow.
So my company made sure I travel to every place in Mumbai and around. So I'm very familiar with the trains, man. Don't worry.
Amazing, amazing. Good to know. So, the next one is, this is a word which is relatively, relatively popular, within the peers, which is called boss management. What is boss management as for you?
Whew.
What is boss management for you?
Uh,
A lot of bosses would listen to this, so
Charles, score a brownie point, man. To be honest, promises delivered. Yeah, I'll go by our values we used to live. I mean, I
yeah,
still live by some of them, and they were strong. I think that's if you can do that, uh, keeping in mind that you do everything else correct. I think that's important. So
wow,
deliver promises. It's not boss, right? It's just about the whole organization as such. So
yeah.
we have tried to do
This is
that. At least I tried to do that, but it had its moments. But yeah, I think that could be an interesting asset or interesting attribute that you can develop between
wow.
you and your boss, so to speak.
Yeah, so we
Either ways, huh? It goes either ways, buddy.
uh,
And I know
conditions applied.
you are reminded me of that all the time. Hey, by the way, Vaibhav, it's your turn now.
Good. So we end with a couple of full forms, Vaibhav.
Okay.
Uh, in the word YouTube, what does the word tube mean?
Ooh, I never thought about this, yeah. Tube.
Just keep it simple. YouTube. What?
That's another one. Oh man, that I've
What?
never kept. I've been blame. I've
Yeah,
been
yeah. It was
so.
pun
I
intended.
have no
Yeah.
idea, man. I don't know. Experience must be ED.
Uh,
I don't know what. Go
no,
ahead,
no.
man.
Okay, so just don't go on the full form.
Okay.
It is derived from a word. So that word of you and tube is kind of derived from
Oh,
somewhere.
like a television tube. So it's you on a telly.
Perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. Probably that.
Perfect.
Must be that.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
must be that. It is that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Got it.
Superb.
Got it.
So we end this with a full form which is 100% relatable to you in a very nice way. So what's the full form of smart?
Smart. I don't know, man. I think
Just
it's
go
smart.
for it.
Smart itself and is good enough, right?
Yeah, just go for it. What would each word be standing for?
Mm, Like as in what? Smart as in.
The full form of smart, right? Smart, the usual word smart. Vaibhav is a smart chap. Now, try.
This is all I told you. That's it.
So S is specific,
Okay.
M is measurable, A is achievable,
Oh, nice.
R is realistic, and T is timely.
Very nice. I didn't know about this, man.
Yeah, yeah. So now you can correlate it better, right?
Yeah,
All right,
that's
Vaibhav.
true. That's true. Okay, man. Thank you.
Sorry, but fun catching up with you, man. As always, great learnings,
Always.
great takeaways, and thank you so much for being an inspiration to me and a lot of others. Appreciate your time. Your
Thank you for having me.
your screen got hung up at the wrong moment.
What